So if you guys could please type into the chat, what is the craziest thing that you bought during the pandemic? I always love hearing people's answers on this. You'll see that I've added that as a prompt in the chat, and this can make sure that everybody knows where their chat is. They can use that for comments and questions. A gym membership, that's not crazy. That sounds very healthy, getting you out of your four walls. Oh, okay, Kayla. Kayla has us talked about a house during the pandemic. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, Randy. Actually, yeah, if you're up in New York State, it was very challenging, right? Every state had kind of slightly different things going through what they did with gyms. I must say I abandoned my gym membership during the pandemic. So we did the exact opposite. There was an evening of the force there. If we can get another few thoughts on what people bought during the pandemic. Craziest thing. Roger or Chris, do you guys have something that you thought was particularly crazy that you bought during the pandemic?
Yes.
Yeah.
What?
I ended up buying a new truck. So there you go.
That was a volume purchase there, Chris. I'm guessing not what you intended.
Well, I have an old car and I was tinkering with it and I was trying different automotive carburetors for it. I ended up buying so many carburetors and selling them that my CPA advised me perhaps I should make a separate business of it. So there's a new startup in Rhode Island and it's fixing old car carburetors.
Oh my gosh, that
because
is
of the pandemic.
Funny. That is a riot. Oh, I love it. I love it.
I have one car and I have 22 carburetors at this moment.
Yeah, that seems like, I mean, again, I'm not the lean manufacturing expert at Polaris MEP. I would be the marketing person. However, it feels like perhaps you need a little bit of an inventory solution suggested.
Yes, this is
for
not
your brand new business. Well, excellent.
My JIT process is way off.
Basically. I love it.
This is not working for me.
Wonderful kind of bits of things about the craziest things we bought during the pandemic. And I can tell you that what I bought was something called a luggable loo. Literally, it's like a big 5-gallon bucket with a toilet seat because I was going hiking and camping a lot and nobody would let you into the facilities anymore. So that was my crazy thing. And I confess that I was influenced by a website and then later by social media to buy that luggable loo. And that's really kind of a simple illustration of how the pandemic only accelerated, right? The way there was a shift to digital for first seeking out, researching, and then buying products. And that's what brings us here today. You could advance a little bit of information about Polaris MEP for those who have not yet worked with us. We are a nonprofit consulting group. Our sole mission is to help Rhode Island's small and medium-sized manufacturers grow, get stronger, not just survive, but thrive. We serve as the resource for Rhode Island manufacturers. And what that means is that we not only provide some services ourselves, but we connect you to experts who can help you adjust. In this case, adjust to a more digitally oriented world. As you're changing your marketing tactics to reach your new sales goals. So it is my pleasure to introduce officially Chris Sheehy of Sidewalk Branding, one of my favorite specialists in our resource network, and Roger Hultquist of Orbetron, who is one of my favorite clients. Don't tell all the others. Chris, do you want to take it away?
Sure, absolutely. Erin, thank you for the warm introduction and for helping me with the technology this morning. Yeah, you know, as much as I am living in technology on a daily basis, yeah, as we mentioned earlier, it's great when it works. So, let me introduce, if I may, take this opportunity to first introduce my client, my friend, Polaris MEP's client, Roger Hultquist. Roger's been in the game for many, many years. Around 2011, Roger founded Orbetron to fill a niche that he saw within the low and fractional fill rates within his industry. And It was honored to receive the phone call at the opportunity to work with Roger. Roger, if I can just start that little bit of an introduction, and if you can continue from there and give us a little bit of background, where you started in the industry, what was your catalyst to go it alone and open Orbetron in 2011, and maybe even what spurred you to seek out Polaris. Where were you at business at that time?
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it. And hopefully a little bit of my insights help you guys out there. And to give a kudos out to Polaris for finding each other, I guess, in a roundabout way. For myself personally, I've, for better or for worse, been doing this for over 35 years. So, and mostly in the feeding industry. And it's ranged anywhere from agriculture to pharmaceuticals to plastics to chemical, some food. And so I've got a pretty good broad range of design and manufacturing for these different industries. But back in, it was even before 2011, 2010, my partner and I, we were the proverbial sitting down at a table with a napkin. Okay, you've heard that 100 times, but as I sit here today, we did exactly that. We designed a small feeder. We had a request from a small company, Medtronic. And I say that tongue in cheek because they were very large. They're a very large company, and they required something to feed 5 grams of material. There was really nothing out in the industry at the time where you could go out and just purchase commercially a feeder to do that. It was all special. So we found a niche there. And so we started our first development. And we've developed 4 of these disc feeders. And from that point, it's kind of worked its way forward with the introduction into Medtronic. We were able to hone in and try to, for the lack of a better way to put it, improve our technology. Over the years, since 2011, we typically have, let's say, advertised or promoted our product structures in magazines or, let's say, specific technical magazines for different industries. As this was all great and networking with the number of people that I've known for years, our business kind of took off. Well, at a point when we were growing, and we had started this business originally in Wisconsin, and in 2017, I believe was the year, the beginning of 2017, we moved to Rhode Island, partly because my partner was moving to a more southern, warmer climate, and we decided that I would run it up here in Rhode Island, which for me was good, and for him it was nice because he went to go where it's warm. So he's enjoying warm weather right now. A little bit warmer than us, but
that's it.
He's enjoying it. So anyway, as we moved to Rhode Island, one of the things that we needed to improve on, and we knew this going in when we made our move, was how do we get the people out there to know who we are and what we do? Because we do something pretty special that the average feeder company does not do. So when we feed low rates, we were able to get down to the milligrams of product being fed. And this is something that was very unique, especially for us in terms of the pharmaceutical industry, which we were really not in. We had talked to a few people, but they were kind of a bit of a driving industry that we seen that could utilize our product. So this is an area that we expanded in, along with the plastics and some other things, other industries. But we weren't getting the feedback from our let's say magazine articles and things like that we really wanted to. How do we tell our story was the biggest thing. Go ahead, Chris.
Is that around the time that you were seeking Polaris or
Polaris
actually found you?
Yeah, I think Kayla was one that I visited with, and Mary.
Yes, Mary Johnson.
Mary Johnson came to visit because I had joined RIMA, Rhode Island Manufacturers Association. And at that point, that's kind of Dave, who's the head of that, kind of pointed me that this might be the direction that I need to go because we needed some better marketing, at least in my opinion, too. So that's when these two young ladies came and we talked and got Chris involved. And from that point, we created a step-by-step, I guess, if you want to call it, ability to better market our product within the SEO world, which, quite frankly, I knew nothing about. We had a website. Our website was okay. It wasn't the best. But I had just hired, prior to that, a Johnson & Wales University young man as an intern. So I figured, you know what? Let's get him in here. Let's figure out what we can do to expand our company.
And that's a great
and that's where, yeah, that goes into Chris.
There's a great segue into our next screen. So, and for the rest of this afternoon. Excellent. Roger, thank you for filling in the details from my end. I'd like back up a bit. Sorry about that. Aaron, can you bounce me back one screen? So my name is Chris Sheehy, and I am with Sidewalk Branding Company. I'm a digital marketing and advertising firm specializing in small to medium cap businesses, traditionally up until around the $5 million mark. I get published every once in a while. I get mentioned every once in a while. I have worked rather on every populated continent except Africa yet. If anyone here has a connection in Africa, I'm game. I've been doing this for 24 and change years. I actually remember when Google made the cover of Time magazine. And I'll be honest, at that time, I thought, boy, Alta Vista and Yahoo, those rule the world. This Google thing, I don't know, that doesn't sound like it's going to work. Yeah, technology is great when it works. I wish I had the foresight to see how well this was going to work. But that's my background. I've been with Polaris for a few years, working with multitudes of different clients along the way in different capacities. And here comes Roger. And I'm going to start off with talking about where we ended up with Roger, and it'll make sense in the back end of the conversation why I started with the end at first. So within about 18 months of working with Roger, Roger's presence has increased locally and internationally. Within specific industries, Roger's brand equity spiked. His revenue went up considerably. All of a sudden, his office space and workshop felt smaller. His head count increased. Roger, can you kind of expand upon that just a little bit when I say that your local and international presence increased, your lead opportunities increased? Can you bounce in a couple of those, fill in a few of those facts? I know there was some interest in some work from Massachusetts within the farm industry, Pfizer, Texas University. Can you bounce around a couple of those ideas?
Yeah, based upon honing in on our abilities and our feeding technology with Chris, what we were able to do is take our technology and introduce it in different ways in which myself was not used to, in terms of, okay, how do I get young people, and I've had this conversation with Chris before, is the new engineers out there today are the young people. And what do they use? They use technology. They use their cell phones. They use their computers. The face-to-face contact with companies, and the pandemic really, kind of hit this out of the park in terms of we can't see each other. We can't shake hands. We can't do things like that. So what we were able to do is we decided on certain industries. The pharmaceutical was one of them. Plastics was another one. Mm-hmm. And from a local standpoint, I was able to utilize our technology for some of the things that happened during the pandemic. with some pharmaceutical companies. And I was also able to reach out and expand us here in Rhode Island to international companies. And what does that mean at the end of the day? Now I have people, for example, in Italy and in the UK that are interested in our technology and what we can do. And even to the point of representing us in those industries. So doing small things, or in Chris's world, keywords is his thing that he always yelled to me about. You got to give me more keywords, better keywords. That's not good enough. No, you got to do this. He I guess lit the fire a little bit to say these are the things that these markets are looking for. And once we figured out what those keywords were, and over the months decided, okay, these are the ones we want to use, then things started to happen. And I remember when we went through the process that at the time, Dylan, who was from Johnson and Wales, he helped redesigned our website to help match what what Chris was doing with the SEOs, because we needed to, for example, and Chris can expand on this a little bit on what he did, but our PDFs were in a PDF form on our website. But Chris said, you need to get them words out there. And the way that Google works and the SEOs work is don't put them in the PDF format, put them on your website, get the words out there. And so at the time we did all that, and it's been the best thing that we've done to get our word in terms of what we do and how we do it out into the industry. And that's definitely, in the short run and in the long runs, really helped us to move our company to, last year was our best year ever. We, even during the pandemic, we exceeded expectations beyond our wildest dreams. And a lot of that was due to new customers that came from California, from universities, from lab areas, from existing customer bases that didn't even know that we did certain things, that have been customers of mine for 10, 15 years. So,
and all of that was derived from keywords, as you mentioned, but that's also part of keywords are part of just one component of a larger strategy, all tied together. Roger, thank you for filling in all of that. So this is what happened with Roger's business. Around 18 months from when we started, we had a 12-month contract with Roger. And hearing Roger speak about it in the past, it was almost like a light switch. It just all of a sudden started working. Recognition of branding, and of course, it wasn't all because of one thing like his website. My business focuses on universal search engine optimization, or universal SEO as it is. And that's all encompassing. So we look at, yes, the website, but we also look at things like the assets that you have on your website, whether they're images or podcasts or videos, a lot of PDF forms from Roger's perspective. As he mentioned, they were just forms, but they were so rich with information, but they were stuck as a PDF and they were unoptimized in themselves. Now, the neat thing about PDFs is they actually work a lot like a website, because search engines can see the text on all of those. To back up a bit, the only thing that search engines can see on all of your websites is text. It actually can't see, or rather it does, but it doesn't use as a ranking factor the images on your website, the videos on your website, the PDFs. Yes, it can see the images, it can see them, but it doesn't use them as of yet as a ranking factor, just the text. Now, behind a PDF, there's actually a lot of text that we can optimize, otherwise known as manipulate. For an SEO perspective, to get us better ranking, whether that's nationally or regionally or internationally. Let me flip to the next slide here and we'll continue the chat. So all of you at this point might be wondering, man, Roger's story sounds really great, maybe even somewhat familiar to a lot of you in terms of how it started, and reliance on things like trade shows, word of mouth, networking, article syndication or publishing. All of that, from my perspective, seems quite common within the industry itself. But what did we do different that enabled Roger to generate $500,000 worth of additional revenue to the point where he needed a new facility and more headcount and all of that good stuff? Well, we audited everything. I briefly touched on the key points of images and text and podcasts and all of that, but we looked at the words of his website. What we initially found was Roger was getting a ton of website traffic for things like cow and sow feeders, animal feeders on farms. Well, he doesn't do that. Bird feeders, huge, a lot of bird feeders, Roger. And Roger doesn't sell bird feeders either. So when looking at the keywords, we were, and some technical SEO elements, we were really able to make sure that we were optimizing those elements, those factors that are going to drive home his strongest value proposition, which are neither bird feeders or animal feeders. Auditing everything. Now, before we started auditing, we actually needed to make sure that we had all of the analytics tied in so we can measure this stuff. We're at every stage, we're always measuring both success and failure. A lot of what I do has similar roots to manufacturing. I come from somewhat of a small manufacturing background myself. My background is industrial, fixing helicopters. My father owned a manufacturing facility all my life as a kid. So I'm kind of used to some of these processes, and I build those into my own business. So when I audit, I want to see data from everywhere. So just Google Analytics isn't good enough for me. I have 3 other paid agency tools that I use to analyze everything that I look at, in addition to Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and Bing Webmaster Tools. That all of that data coming together for me helped identify the pages and the keywords that Roger really needed to be focusing on. The scary side of that initially is in speaking with Roger, we actually saw a decline in traffic flow. Roger, when we first talked about that decline in visitors to your website, was that somewhat of a concern?
Yeah, it was, because one of the things I did not know, and one of the things that I was, I guess, a little bit scared of was, first of all, are these people leaving because of something that we're specifically doing? But once we were able to analyze and really kind of focus in on it, those people weren't really my customers anyway. So
that's right.
By eliminating those, and I say that, you don't want to eliminate anybody, but you want to make sure that you're not taking away from the money that you're spending, because it was a much higher dollar amount I was spending every month on AdWords through Google, and quite honestly, it was a waste of my money at that particular.
Yeah, and that's another component altogether, right? So there's that paid advertising that Roger had on at the same time. Google Ads, used to be called Google AdWords, if you will. A lot of activity, and I know this is an SEO presentation, but there was some advertising going on. My agency, we tweaked a little bit of that just to stop the hemorrhaging of money and just to put things at still. But staying on the SEO focus, in shifting our keywords, we were able to drive less traffic, but more actionable traffic. Telephone calls started ringing, lead forms started being completed. As part of that process, we made sure we process mapped, if you will, the flow of visitors from coming to the website to actually committing and completing a request for information form. And if in certain instances, we can even track telephone calls without any call tracking software through Google. Some calls. The other calls we were tracking through paid ads, but that's possibly a presentation for a different day. We looked at the alignment of resources for Roger and his team, and basically what that means is, I had to make an assessment. Does Roger have enough staff that can help push the initiative through? From an education perspective, is there enough of information to push through? And there was. Johnson & Wales did a great job in coaching, so I had a great advocate on my team at all times. It nailed the technical SEO, and this is where a lot of low-lying fruit is actually hidden away and tucked away. I will say one of the easiest ways to identify some of that is just a technical audit. Sidewalk Branding, we perform technical audits all day long. We see some common elements. Some of those are shared on a different slide coming further. But we have to nail the technical SEO, which basically means we need to make sure that all search engines, and I mentioned Google quite a bit because it drives over 90% of manufacturing traffic. We need to make sure that all of the pages that we want Google to display on search engines is capable of being displayed without an error, without any impacts. There are many pages on your website also that are probably showing up on Google search and maybe shouldn't. Things like theme pages, if you're working in WordPress, login pages, policy pages, shipping pages, notification pages. By pruning those, and it really is called sitemap pruning, think of it as gardening. By pruning those down, we're really only showcasing our pages that are informational driven, meaning people will arrive on those pages and get the information that they're looking for, as well as lead gen capable. So every page of your website theoretically should be driving in lead form. By pruning your sitemap really allows you to positions you for that type of action. Roger mentioned keywords. Yeah, I'm all over keywords. So we need to not just find the keywords that we want to promote as businesses, but we really need to also identify the keywords that people are searching for and looking for our products, our services, as well as our competitors' products and services that kind of mirror what it is that we have to offer. All of that research is done, again, getting back to my interest of being multifactual. I use multiple sources in doing keyword research. It's a great question to ask whoever's doing keyword research for you, how frequently they do it. As a manufacturer, you might only need keyword research once a year, but how many sources of information are coming in for that keyword research for you? On average, for a business that's rolling $1 million or $2 million, you have enough keyword interest that's probably already out there. You should be using about 4 to 6 tools in doing your keyword research. We talked about PDFs and papers and posts and articles, optimized content, but let me just touch bases with, before we create a PDF and get it out on our website, before we release a press release, before we complete that article, whether it's on our blog or it's on social media or it's being syndicated in one of the trade publications, search engine optimization should really come at the forefront. Getting back to keywords, are there proper keywords in place? Are we using the right terms that not just we want to promote our business for, but are we using the terms that your users are searching for as well? There's a great way you can intermix both of those. We might have some unique elements or propositions that we're offering, but at the same token, we need to be discovered easily by the people who are searching, and that keyword research and competitive analysis drives that. I haven't even mentioned the website yet, but that's the last bullet point on this page. So yeah, all of this all comes together. It's back to this universal search engine optimization strategy of everything has a digital footprint that could be optimized. There's around 200 data points on every page of your website that could be modified, optimized, to leverage and push that page in the direction that you need it to go. As Roger mentioned, we made a lot of changes to his pages to be less attractant to things like bird feeders and more attractant to things like pharmaceutical disc feeders. Optimization across the board is what drove that. So I mentioned that there are some errors on website pages today. These are great things to look at. These are great bullet points maybe that you can bring back to your team immediately. If you do the optimization yourself, points to consider here. Within the websites of the viewership today, we have websites that are missing canonical directives. Basically what that means is if your website can show up with and without the www, you could probably have there's an issue there. Simple test, just pull up your website, and if it shows up with www, remove the www and see if the website automatically pushes over to a www or not. If it doesn't, and if you can see the website on both www and non-www, Google can as well. And there's a way that we can tell Google which version to choose. Typically within the manufacturing world, it is using the www. So why is this big? Why is this important? It seems like a lot of blah, 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 blah. So if we don't tell Google which page we want to use, Google will pick one for us, and it might not be the version that we're using. the links that we put in our press releases and our articles, the links that people use when they reference your business, that intermix of www and not. While it might sound pretty trivial, it makes a big difference when we look at things like backlink history, meaning the number of links that point back to a specific page of your website. If we have some links driving to www.widgets.com and other links that point to no www, just widgets.com, we're splitting the earned SEO value amongst those two pages instead of converging them into one. It's a pretty easy fix. We have some viewers today that don't have sitemaps on their site, just like a roadmap that helps us drive to anywhere we want to go. It's the same situation for search engine. Now, I will say it sounds like a huge deal, but it really isn't. In the absence of a sitemap, Google will still see the pages of your website. However, if you have deeper pages of your website, which might not be directly linked to another page, meaning the page all by itself, it's not linked by navigation and there isn't another page linking to it. And trust me, there's probably a lot of pages on your website that do that. Google probably won't be able to find that page, but by having a sitemap, it will. Meta keyword usage. Within the back end of your website, we can see that there is an element that allows us